So I want to address both points today, especially in the light of concerns you may have heard in some other countries about the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine. First, the Independent Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency has reviewed the evidence, as it does every week. They've confirmed that the benefits of the vaccine in preventing COVID far outweigh any risks, and people should continue to get their vaccine when asked to do so. And June will say a little bit more about that in a moment. It's also very important for our European friends that today the European Medicines Agency has come to a clear scientific conclusion, and I quote, "This is a safe and effective vaccine." We also saw yesterday the evidence from Public Health England that a single dose of either vaccine provides 60% protection against getting COVID and reduces the chances of hospitalisation by 80% and the risk of death by 85%. So the Oxford jab is safe and the Pfizer jab is safe. The thing that isn't safe is catching COVID, which is why it's so important that we all get our jabs as soon as our turn comes. And as it happens, I'm getting mine tomorrow, and the centre where I'm getting jabbed is currently using the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine for those receiving their first dose, and that is the one I'll be having. And let me also assure you, if you come forwards after receiving your letter, we have the jabs for you. We've always said that in a vaccination programme of this pace and this scale, some interruptions in supply are inevitable. And it is true that in the short term, we're receiving fewer vaccines than we had planned for a week ago. That is because of a delay in a shipment from the Serum Institute, who are doing a Herculean job in producing vaccines in such large quantities. And because of a batch that we currently have in the UK that needs to be retested as part of our rigorous safety programme. So, as a result, we will receive slightly fewer vaccines in April than in March, but that is still more than we received in February. And the supply we do have will still enable us to hit the targets we have set. That means that by the 15th of April, we'll be able to offer a first dose to all of you who are over 50, as well as those under 50 who are clinically vulnerable. We will have the second doses that people need within the 12-week window, which means around 12 million people in April. And we will still offer a first dose to every adult by the end of July. So there is no change to the next steps of the roadmap. We've now vaccinated over 25 million people across our entire United Kingdom, more than the entire population of many countries, and our progress along the road to freedom continues unchecked. We remain on track to reclaim the things we love, to see our families and friends again, to return to our local pubs, our gyms and sports facilities, and, of course, our shops. All, of course, as long as the data continue to go in the right direction and we meet our 4 tests. And the way to ensure that this happens is to get that jab when your turn comes. So let's get the jab done. Thank you very much. I'm now going to hand to June Rain.
Thank you, Prime Minister, and good afternoon. The MHRA has been carrying out robust safety vigilance in tandem with the COVID-19 vaccination programme. Our role is to continually monitor safety during widespread use of a vaccine, to confirm that they're performing as expected, to identify any new side effects that arise, and to ensure that the benefits continue to outweigh the risks. We've been able to gather a large amount of data on the safety profile of the available vaccines and have done a rigorous scientific review of all the available data with regards to suspected blood clots. Our review, alongside the critical assessment of leading independent scientists in the Commission on Human Medicines, shows that there is no difference, that blood clots in veins are occurring more than would be expected in the absence of vaccination for either vaccine. The public can have every confidence in the thoroughness of our review. We have also received 5 reports of a rare form of blood clot in the cerebral sinuses, cerebral sinus vein thrombosis, or CSVT, occurring together with lowered blood platelets shortly after vaccination with the COVID-19 vaccine AstraZeneca. This type of blood clot can rarely occur naturally in unvaccinated people, as well as in people with COVID-19 disease. A further review of these events is ongoing, but a causal relationship with the vaccine has not yet been established. And the rate of occurrence of these CSVT events among the 11 million people vaccinated is extremely rare. While we continue to investigate these cases as a precautionary measure, we would advise anyone with a headache that lasts more than 4 days after vaccination or bruising beyond the site of vaccination after a few days to seek medical attention. And we will communicate further on the outcome of this further review when it's complete. The MHRA assessed this data alongside the benefits of the vaccine in preventing COVID-19 with its associated risk of hospitalisation and death, and determined that the benefits firmly remain to outweigh the risks. So you should continue to receive your vaccine when you get the call or the second dose as soon as you're contacted. And I want to end by expressing our sincere gratitude to those who have sent reports to the MHRA and remind everyone that you can report and you should report all suspected side effects to COVID-19 vaccines through the Coronavirus Yellow Card Scheme. Thank you, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, June. Let's go to Chris. Anything to add to that? Thank you very much. Let's go to Jane from Buckinghamshire.
Good afternoon. Are the UK able to provide stats to prove that the AstraZeneca vaccine is safe and therefore alleviate the current fears of blood clots in the EU? Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. I'm going to pass that straight back to June and then to Chris.
Yes, we can. We're committed to transparency. We publish every week all the suspected adverse drug reaction reports that we receive, and our report includes further information on any trends, and it will certainly communicate all the data and the stats around the particular issue of blood clots. Thank you.
The thing I'd add to what Dr. Rains just said is firstly that all of medicine is about saying, look, what are the potential risks of the treatment? And everything that you take, every drug, every vaccine, every operation is going to have some risks, often very small, including drugs that people are very used to, like aspirin. So, for example, that can cause bleeding, that can cause a whole variety of problems. And yet we all would see that as a normal drug that people would just have in their bathroom cabinet. So all drugs have some side effects that are rare. The question is, are the benefits big enough to justify that? And what we have here, what Dr. Rain has laid out, is an incredibly small potential risk, and even this is a potential risk, not one that is certain. So 5 people out of the 11 million that have been given the vaccine in the UK so far, against the really very substantial protection that these vaccines give and that the AZ vaccine, as well as the Pfizer vaccine, give to people against this really common disease. And I think it's important to remind people that at this point in time, we're still in a situation where the Office for National Statistics think that 1 in 270 people have got COVID. This is still a common disease, and it is a very dangerous disease for many people. People dying, people getting significant blood clotting problems. That's one of the risks of COVID. People having long-term physical and mental effects from COVID. So this is a very significant disease that is very common, with a very effective vaccine, 2 vaccines in the case of AZ and Pfizer, and real issues that we always have to think about with all drugs, but they are so much smaller than the benefits of getting the vaccine. So the risk-benefit is really strongly in favour of getting vaccinated, as the MHRA have said today, and as the EMA, the excellent European Medicine Safety Agency, has also said today. So this is a universal view. It's also the view of the World Health Organization, WHO.
Thanks, Chris. Barry from Burton-on-Trent. Barry asks, in the light of the European President the European Commission President, threatening to block the export of vaccines. How will this affect the general public who are waiting for the second dose of the Pfizer vaccine, which is produced in Belgium? Barry, thank you very much. I think that people should be under no anxiety or no misapprehensions about that. We will get on and deliver all the second doses of the Pfizer, and it's very important to stress, whatever you may hear about the pressures that different countries are under to deliver vaccines for their public. These vaccines are a multinational effort. They're produced as the result of international cooperation, and I want to stress that we in the UK will continue to view it in that spirit, and we don't have any bans on exporting stuff, and we'll continue to cooperate with our European friends. Let's go to Fergus Walsh of the BBC.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Is there a danger that the unfounded concerns about the safety of the AstraZeneca vaccine might put some people off from having their jab? What would you say to them? And for Professor Whitty, how important is it that the under 50s get immunised as soon as possible?
Thanks. Well, Fergus, I think the best testimony that I can offer about the safety of the Pfizer and the Oxford-AstraZeneca, which seem to be pretty much identical in safety terms, is really what you've heard just now from Dr. Rain and Professor Whitty. I think that they are, medical professionals whose view it is that these are safe and effective vaccines, and that's been confirmed today by the European Medicines Agency. And I think that's a voice that will be heard around the whole of the European Union, and that's all to the good.
I just to add to that, the overwhelming professional view of doctors around the world and other health professionals is these vaccines are highly effective against a dangerous infection that is common, and they are safe, very safe relative to the risk of the infection. So the first thing is to say there's a very strong professional consensus on that. And it is clear that the British public also have taken that message. And if you look at the numbers that people have coming forward for vaccination, well over 90% in the age groups that have gone through their vaccination have chosen to take this up. So there is the general public is, as always, sensible and steady on this. They understand this is a dangerous disease, an effective vaccine, and one that's got very low side effects compared to the risk of catching the disease. In terms of the under 50s, the biggest risk, as everyone will by now know, is in those who are older or have health conditions. So it's quite right that those were prioritised, and the JCVI prioritisation made that clear. And in terms of people who have sadly died from COVID, 99% of people who died would have come from either people over 50 or with pre-existing health conditions who are in the groups that are currently being vaccinated. So that was the absolute priority. And we know that a second vaccine on top of the first adds to the protection. So it is really important that people who are invited for a second vaccination come and get it, and then in particular these people in the first the JCVI groups 1 to 9, the people over 50 and with health conditions. So really important they do that. Once those are vaccinated, it is also very important we start going down the ages, because people can continue to have significant health problems in their 40s, 30s, 20s, and occasionally even younger than that. But it decreases over age, but there's still significant health problems all the way through. So it will be critical that once we got through the first group, who are the ones who are most at risk, we go on to do this protection. And it does one additional thing, which is the higher the proportion of the population are vaccinated, the smaller the risk to everybody. So by being vaccinated, someone protects themselves, and if they take the second vaccine, they protect themselves even more. But if they also have the vaccination, they reduce the risk of passing on COVID to people around them. So that's what we really want, is everyone to be vaccinated for their own protection. And if everybody is protected, that also protects everyone else in society.
Thanks, Fergus. Emily Morgan, ITV.
Thank you, Prime Minister. You said that there's no change to the roadmap, but you have also said in the past that we will only move to the next phase of easing of lockdown if we pass 4 tests. Doesn't this vaccine supply issue mean that we are actually going to fail the first test, which is the continued successful deployment of the vaccine?
No, is I think the short answer to that. We'll be able to meet our targets in exactly the way that I described by April the 12th and by July, and that's the crucial thing. And that will enable us to get on with the steps on the timetable that we've set out. So April the 12th, May the 17th, June the 21st, we will continue all the unlockings that I've set out. If the 4 tests, as I've said, continue to be met. Thank you very much, Tom Newton-Dunn, Times Radio.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Question for Professor Whitty. Are vaccine centres, GPs, whoever, banned from administering vaccines to under 50s if they have stock left over, if they've done all their Group 6s, if they've done all their over 50s? And question to Prime Minister, on India's role in stopping the Serum Institute from exporting 4 million doses, as you just said they've just done, what was the Indian government's role in that? Do you know? And furthermore, if they have indeed stopped the Serum Institute from exporting 4 million doses to us, is that not the same vaccine nationalism that you're quick to call the EU out on, have been silent so far over India?
Chris.
I mean, the NHS has been really clear that what they want to do is to prioritise the people in the over 50s and those in the high-risk groups, plus health and social care workers and carers of vulnerable people. And they've done that for a really obvious reason that I think everybody accepts. And what those leading this have said, and I completely agree with this, is we must, at this point, really prioritise the possibility that we don't miss anybody, leave anyone behind, because we're racing down the ages. And just to give something, you know, the Society of Actuaries gave some numbers on this to explain why this is so important. And what they said was that if you assume the vaccine was completely effective, which isn't completely effective, but very close to, very, very close to that for practical purposes, you would need to vaccinate 20 people in the highest risk group to actually prevent 1 death. By the time we get down to the people in their 50s who are otherwise well, don't have other problems, you need to vaccinate 8,000 people to actually prevent 1 death. The point I'm making is the key priority at the moment is to find all the people who've not yet had the opportunity to be offered a vaccine in the highest risk groups, complete on that, and then we absolutely then want to go down further down the ages. But that's the reason for the decisions.
Yeah, and Tom, on your question about the Serum Institute of India, I want to thank the Serum Institute of India for their heroic role in producing huge quantities of vaccine, and the Indian government hasn't stopped any export. There is a delay, as I've described, as there is very frequently in vaccine rollout programmes. But this is, believe me, by no means the end of the story of the UK's relationship with the Serum Institute of India, and you know, we hope to make further progress over the weeks and months ahead. There is a huge amount of work that we want to do together, and this is just the beginning. Thanks very much, Tom. I think you wanted to come back on something. Do you want to come back there, Tom?
Very quickly, yeah.
Yes.
Is the Indian responsible for that delay, if not a ban? Have the Indian government delayed that export?
No. There is a delay, as there often is, caused for various technical reasons, but we hope, as I've said, to continue to work very closely with the Serum Institute of India, and indeed with partners around the world, including on the European continent. So this is a big international effort. We're going to continue as the UK to be global in our outlook, as you would expect us to be. Steve Swinford, The Times.
Prime Minister, you've previously called for an amnesty for migrants who are in the UK illegally. How comfortable are you with the idea of sending asylum seekers overseas for processing? And Professor Whitty, the latest figures suggest that just 1 in 16,000 tests on school children have come back positive. How confident are you that we'll be able to proceed with the easing of the lockdown on April the 12th?
Steve, the first point about the illegal immigration into the UK is that, and you're perfectly right. I think when people have been here for a very long time and haven't fallen foul of the law, then it makes sense to try to regularise their status. But that actually is pretty much what already happens under the existing rules. But when it comes to what the Home Secretary was setting out, I want to be clear. The objective here is to save life and avert human misery, because people are crossing the channel who are being fooled, who are being conned by gangsters into paying huge sums of money, risking their lives. People have died making this, trying to make this crossing, and it is a deeply repugnant traffic that we need to stop, and that's why the Home Secretary has set out the tough series of proposals that you've seen. But the objective is a humanitarian one and a humane one, which is to stop the abuse of these people by a bunch of traffickers and gangsters. That's what we're trying to do. Thanks very much.
I was asked on schools, PM.
Sorry, Chris.
On schools, just 3 points to make. The first of which is a huge thank you to teachers and other school staff who have done a really terrific job in making it as safe as possible for all children to come back. And remembering, of course, that children are not the group who are heavily affected by this infection, but they are important potentially in the transmission. And what they're doing in the schools is really going to benefit the students, the staff, and wider society. In terms of, we are expecting that schools going back will put some upward pressure on R. We've said that right from the beginning. That was an accepted thing that is likely to happen. But the roadmap was planned with that possibility absolutely in mind when the Prime Minister announced it. And what he also said, and this is just reiterating what he said, was he wants, and ministers want, to be based on data, not dates. And we have not yet got to the point we can see the full impact of the schools being open again. And therefore, what we will need to do is to re-look at the data once it comes in. But it takes a while for the data fully to reveal itself and to be properly analysed in a way that the Prime Minister and other ministers can make a decision. So it is important that we stick to this data, not dates approach. But there's nothing at the moment that is flashing red lights beyond what you'd expect, which is, of course, when there are schools open, there is slightly greater possibility of transmission. We'll just have to see what the data show.
Thanks. I just say, Steve, on schools, I was actually at a school a primary school in my constituency today, and the feeling there was they were so glad to be back. It was obvious from all the pupils said, and I want to echo what Chris said. I want to thank all the teachers who've done an amazing amount of work getting their schools ready. All the parents who put up with lockdown for so long and worked so hard. And I think I'm right in saying that the attendance today is actually higher than we would normally expect it to be at this time of year, and it was very, very good to see the enthusiasm for being back at school and the steps that schools are still taking and rightly taking to ensure that it's COVID secure. Mesa Hall of the Express.
Thank you, Prime Minister. If I can ask Professor Whitty, have you seen any evidence that the suspension of the Oxford vaccine in some European countries has had any impact here in terms of people not turning up for appointments or perhaps asking for an alternative if they do? And Prime Minister, next week is the anniversary of the start of the first lockdown. I think you've said that you'll privately observe a minute's silence, as the Marie Curie charity has asked people to do. Should we see it as a national day of commemoration for those that we've lost in this pandemic? And have you given any more thought to a permanent memorial to them?
On the question you asked me, I mean, there are anecdotal reports, which I'm sure will be accurate, that in some places a few people have not turned up immediately after they heard the news. I suspect a lot of them will think about it, see the very reassuring data that the MHRA has given, that Dr. Rain laid out earlier, the very reassuring points that the World Health Organization made, the very reassuring things that the European Medicines Agency made, and the overwhelming view of the medical and nursing and other health professions. And they will realise that this is something that, having had a pause for thought, they want to do. But the numbers were very small who did that. Actually, almost record numbers have been going through in terms of numbers of people taking up the vaccine. Overall, there is no evidence of a significant problem that people do not want vaccination. And anybody who is doubtful about this, I would encourage them just to think through the dangers of COVID, how common it is, and the safety of the vaccines. This is something that absolutely is in their interest, as well as everyone around them's interests, for them to take.
Yeah, and Mace, on the anniversary, of course, I'll be marking it, as I'm sure millions of others will around the country. And on the idea for a national memorial, yes, we will certainly be pursuing that, and a lot of good suggestions have already come in, and you'll be hearing more about that in due course. Let's go to Alex Brown of the Scotsman.
Good evening. For you, Prime Minister, when will cross-border travel be relaxed enough for the 800,000 Scots in England to go home and see their families again? And secondly, do you think Nicola Sturgeon should resign if she broke the ministerial code? And would you expect the same of your own ministers?
Well, Alex, I hope very much that we'll be able to move around as one United Kingdom according to the timetable set out on the roadmap, and I hope that everybody will show common sense in application of the rules around the country. And as I've said earlier on, there's no change to the roadmap as a result of anything to do with the vaccine rollout, which continues well. And I think your second question was an attempt to get me quite properly to get me to comment on something which I think is properly and rightly left to the Parliament in Scotland to address and to the Scottish electorate. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. Thank you.